welcome to UK Casuals. As you may be able to tell, we've got Frank Portinari back for a part two. The first interview did very well, Frank. Got some comments, which will pop on the screen now, telling me to stop interrupting you. And they just want to hear your stories, Frank, of back in the day with Spurs. So what I will do, Frank, is hand it over to you with the first story you want to tell of your away day stories, mate.
Right, well, I'm going to have to put these on for a minute, which isn't my favourite thing to do, but we're getting on a bit now. So
yeah, no problem.
It's a case of having to. So I'll have a little quick look at my list as I go. Righto, I've got Nottingham Forest away, and that will be in the early 70s. In the early 70s, I'd have been around 15, 16, and an older pal of mine wanted to go to Nottingham Forest away, but more to the point, a younger friend of mine, Terry, wanted to come with us. Well, in the early 70s, it was a bit naughty going to the away games, you know, and people were finding their feet, getting organised as gangs, mobs, whatever you want to call it in those days. And his mum didn't want him to go. And we had to basically go and knock on his door and say to her, I beg your pardon, is it right we take Terry to Nottingham? And she wasn't best convinced, to be honest. And but she, we convinced her. And of course, she wanted us to look after her little soldier. And we swore that we would. And anyway, we get to Nottingham. That was the easy bit. Of course, getting over Trent Bridge after the game is a completely different story. And everybody remembers, Forest in the old days was a tough old place. And I can remember a time in the 70s when Forest were probably the top firm in the Midlands at that time. So you didn't go there and take a liberty. And although there was plenty of trouble on the way to the game, there was trouble inside the stadium. But of course, you all know what you're waiting for when you come out, and we'd heard stories of people had been slung over off the bridge in the river. So it was all stick together, and let's all charge over the bridge at the same time, so to speak, which we did, and we put Forest on the back foot. Of course, all of a sudden, it had to happen. Somebody turned around and said, "Yeah, have you seen your mate?" And we said, no, what's the matter? Well, we walked back over the bridge. He's laying on the floor, Terry. He's had a brick on his head. And all claret. So much for looking after him. We wasn't very popular when we got him home, that's for sure, because we had him all bandaged up, and his old mum was none too pleased with us, that's for sure. Of course, she swore blind. He never be able to go and have a football match. But over the years, she did relent, and we did used to joke that Terry did used to have quite a big head. So it was going to be if the brick was going to be anyone's head, it was going to be his anyway.
It was going to hit him.
So that's just one of the light-hearted things that can go on a football match.
All right, Frank. Just a quick question, not to annoy the viewers.
Don't upset them.
No, don't upset. The away days. It was very different to what it is now, wasn't it, Frank? It was very dodgy, to say the least.
Oh yeah, and if you were a young teenager, you relied very much on the older fellas. But even then, sometimes the inevitable would happen, and even some of the older blokes, the bigger blokes, I was be about 10 stone, 7, 11 stone, in the early 70s. Well, when you see their bottle go, then you're really in trouble, isn't you? You think, hold on, it's time to turn tail and run, innit? But but then that's the making of you, innit? That is the making. Yeah. If a few stand, you stand. And then you're going to get a whack, don't you? But the following week, you're in the pub, and people remember that. People say, "I remember you, mate, up at Stoke or wherever it was." dodgy. Not always the big clubs, you know, not always, you know, you expected it at Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle, etc. But I think some people used to get a little bit cocky and say, "Oh, when you're going up the Stoke or somewhere like that,"
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And they're tough places. Listen, industrial towns and cities with you know, old men, and if you weren't careful, you was in trouble. And I say, being teenagers, you particularly had to be careful.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Frank. That people from the bigger clubs, you know, from London and stuff, they thought they go to these little towns, you know, like Huddersfield. Like you say, they go to Stoke. You know, a lot of people have gone. I interviewed a guy called Martin Wymer Gardner from Lincoln, and a lot of people have come unstuck at Lincoln because they don't expect it.
I've heard that.
You know. Okay, Frank. On to the next story then, mate.
On to the next one, shall we? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a bit different. This one. This is 1982. This is a European game, and Tottenham are playing Eintracht Frankfurt. So a few of us organised our own coach, filled it up with beer. I mean, we even had a toilet on the coach. I'm sure someone bought half a barrel or something. You know, we used as a toilet for part of the way.
Right.
And a long old trot, you know, to Frankfurt from North London. Anyway, we stopped off in Cologne. And this is where it gets a little bit crazy now, because we couldn't have a coach stay of us all walking in the same bar. So 12 went in this bar, 12 went in another bar, you know. And so the one we went in, the governor of the pub was a woman. And as soon as we walked in this bar, she said, she pointed at this German beer and she said, you know, no, very strong beer, very strong beer. She said, well, Brits, what do we say? 12 pints of that strong beer there, love.
Thank you. Yeah.
12 that strong German beer. And taking into account, don't forget, Anthony, we've been drinking all the way, you know, from London and on the boat and across, you know, Europe before we even got to Cologne. So we're in the bar and vaguely noticed that there was 2 or 3 women sitting in the corner. We was all drinking and having a good old time. And I got talking to this Dutch lorry driver, a fellow called Pete, and he did a lot of trips to the UK. And a mate of mine went up to get some matches. I don't know, that people the same age as me used to get like a penny book match. It was a piece of cardboard with matches in it, and then a bit that you know. So my mate Barry gets up and he basically asks for one of these. And I notice one of the women looking at him. And I say to this Dutch lorry driver, "Here, Pete, what's all that about?" And he went, "Oh," he said, prostitutes. He said, prostitutes. I said, "Oh, brasses." He went, yeah. He said, "You know what you get in King's Cross," he said, "and Soho and that." And I said, "Oh yeah," I said, "Yeah, definitely." I said, "There's a big fucking price difference between Soho and King's Cross, though, Pete. I'm going to show you."
Yeah.
Anyway, so I go back to the table. I'm saying to him, I go back to the table and I say to the rest of the fellas, I said, "Here, birds over there with brasses." So the old drink's going in it. Anyway, I can't help myself. I go to the jukebox. And in those days, our old 5p piece was the same as a German mark. So I'm looking down the list on the jukebox. I've come across Olivia Newton-John, Let's Get Physical. Seemed appropriate at the time. So of course I put it on 2 times. The boys are all pissed. They're all out there dancing in a Let's Get Physical and all this. So the birds are on it. So one by one, the boys are slipping away with them. They got a flat across the road. So all of a sudden, the old beer's kicking in. My stomach starts playing up. So I thought, God, I've got to go to the Carsey.
Yeah.
So I've gone out to the Carsey. Of course, sod's law. There's no toilet roll, is there?
Oh.
So I've had to come back and trying to explain to this German bird that there's no toilet paper. So the only way I could do it is using hand signals. So I'm saying to her, pointing round at my house. She screams like a lunatic, thinks I want to do her up the bottle.
Right, okay, yeah.
Right. So all of a sudden, we didn't even know there was another bar side to this, this pub. These big German blokes that come flying round, they want to kill us. No, they want to kill me in particular. So what mates were left jumped up, glasses in their hand, fucking ashtrays, and we thought, oh, here we go, fucking World War III, the Germans again. Had to be the Germans. Well, he's sitting there like when his head off, the Dutch lorry driver, this Pete. So I said, Pete, what's happening, mate? He went to me, she thinks you want to... I went, no. I want to talk to her. So thank God he spoke German, and he explained it to her. She laughed, and she called all the other mob off, and when I got me a toilet roll, and bought us all a drink. Thankfully, she saw the funny side of it, but that could have turned really nasty,
All because of a toilet roll, Frank.
Not with a toilet roll, mate. We could have had World War III with the Germans again, yeah.
All because of a toilet roll.
So we got away with it. I went to Frankfurt, so that was 1982, and I can't even remember the score, if I'm honest. I think we might have won 2-1 and gone through in the second leg or something like that. It was a Cup Winners' Cup, I think it was. Yeah, so that was certainly a mad trip.
That's fantastic. I mean, only at football, Frank. Only at football.
Yeah.
All because of a toilet roll, and she thought because you wanted it up the wrong one, or up her wrong one. Okay, Frank, we'll go on to the next story, mate.
Right. This is a mad one. This is what I'm trying to do. Make them a little, make it a little bit more humorous. It wasn't all violence. Let's face it.
Of course. Yeah.
Well, basically, it was a Saturday. Game in the 80s. We had QPR away. If I'm honest, in those days, you did go to the football, obviously, but we used to go for a beer and a punch up, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
That didn't happen very often at QPR. I'm not being disrespectful. QPR have had their day, over the years, but we didn't really have a problem going to QPR, and we couldn't be bothered. Some of us, we said, "Oh fuck it, let's not bother. We'll stay around Bethnal Green and we'll have a drink." And we was in the Burkheys having a drink. Then one of our routing mates, Jack, he decides to let off a gas canister in there. So of course we've all got to come out the pub with our pints, couldn't go back in. And now we're bored. So we see a fella, and he's washing his van. He's got an old transit van, washing his van. And someone said, "Listen, why don't we give him a few quid? Maybe he'll give us a lift over Shepherd's Bush." And we said, "Oh, come in." So dozen or so of us gets in the back of the van. Arsenal are at home. We try and convince this fella to go over to Shepherd's Bush via Highbury so we can jump out of the van and surprise a few gooners, Anyway, he wouldn't have it. Drop us up at Shepherd's Bush, gain an off licence, get some cans of beer, walking up one of the side streets, going towards Loftus Road. So not taking life too seriously, certainly not taking QPR too seriously. All of a sudden, 10 blokes, young fellas, younger than us, come around the corner, and we kind of waved them off, thinking, fuck off, our reputation and all that. Then the blades come out, don't they? This little firm was from Latimer Road, Ladbroke Grove, and it suddenly got very serious. And probably another 15 more came round the corner. We was only walking down the roads in 2s and 3s. We weren't even mobbed up properly. Fortunately for us, there was a skip outside one of the houses, so there was half bricks, lumps of wood. And by the side of the skip was a pile of sand with a shovel sticking in the sand. So I thought, I'm having that. So I go and get the shovel, and I start running down the road at them. Well, I remember at the time I was wearing a pair of desert boots. They'd suddenly come back into fashion. Of course, the boys were all laughing. Me got these desert boots on and this pile of sand. They're all going, "Go on, Rommel, go on, Rommel." Rommel with the desert boot. Anyway, so I ran towards and scattered these fellas. Fortunately, I didn't have to use the shovel because I dread to think what sort of damage that would have done. But a copper come round the corner and all of a sudden he basically dispersed everybody until the rest of the old bill turned up. And funny enough, we only had one injury amongst us. One of my mates, Flacco, got a little nick in the side of his arm, so there was no permanent damage done. And of course, we went in the stadium and fuck me, we were talking to everyone. We said, that's it, we've got to go looking where these fellas are for the game. But the old bill being the old bill, they got wise to that, didn't they? And they made sure they had us up and a proper, escort coming out of the ground. So that was a fairly lively day. It didn't end there. We get on the Central line and we get off at Tottenham Court Road. And there used to be an Ian Summers there.
Right.
So I said to some of the boys, listen, why don't we jump on a 20-board bus up to where I live and we're going to one of my local pubs. We finished the evening off, And of course, half a dozen of them decide they're going to Ian Summers, don't they? And they have a fever. They ain't paving nothing, are they? So they come out, they got whips, they got French-made outfits, you name it, anyway. So we get on the bus, they're on the top deck of the bus, they're pretending to whip people. I mean pretending, it wasn't actually whipping anybody.
Yeah.
So of course we get back to one of my locals in Kentish Town, the Sir Robert Peel, and the poor governor in there, Seamus, he couldn't work out what was going on, fellas with French-made outfits, fucking on them and God knows what, and blokes walking in with whips, and one's got all claret on his arm, And of course, he said to me, Frank, what you fucking bring? What's this mob you're bringing in here? Like, he'd never seen some of them. Anyway, that was all okay. It's to the end of the night. So I say to one of my pals, yeah, give us one of them French-made outfits. I'll take it home with the old woman. So I go home, but I don't tell her. This is the difficult bit, Matty. I don't tell her I've got this thing. So I go upstairs. And I put it on because of the squeeze. Right? This is a squeeze. Now, this isn't a regular thing I do, chaps, so bear with me.
No, yeah, don't get the wrong idea.
Because there's a backstory to this. Not long before that, we'd found out that my sister-in-law, that her husband, was a transvestite. She basically caught him wearing her underwear.
Oh,
so me drinking, he thought, I'll have a bit of devilment here. So I put the thing on and I'll get in the wardrobe. So when my missus comes into the bedroom, I dive out the wardrobe. Surprise! Jump on the bed. There's just one little problem. The bed collapses and the ceiling rose in the living room downstairs falls down and the whole fucking ceiling fell down.
Jesus. So
imagine when I had to phone the council on Monday and explain. I obviously didn't explain how it got, but basically, so all in all, for a day where we weren't going to go to QPR, it turned out to be a proper mad day.
The evening ended in
we've had this discussion before. We've had this discussion before. Again, don't underestimate people wherever you go. You do definitely get a little bit too blasé. You think you're the business, but it can go terribly. It could go terribly wrong. Thankfully, I say we only had one injury on the day.
Yeah, I mean, that phone call to the council must have been, you must have bended the truth somewhat, Frank.
Yes, I think out of too much. He was an old Georgian out, so he was due to start falling apart.
That's all I can say. Okay, Frank, on to the next story, mate, of the away day stories.
Yeah, this is a different one as well. We were over Arsenal, and it was the usual trick. You crept into the North Bank, kept quiet, didn't say anything, and then people would make eye sort of contact with each other, and you knew there was enough of you together, and then you'd make a bit of a charge, and that was it. You charged towards towards the Arsenal fellas. And invariably, the North Bank would get split down the middle. Sometimes you pushed them even further over, but then they'd gain a bit back, and then the old Bill would get a line down the middle. Mm-hmm. And I got warned a couple of times, a couple of warned me a couple of times, any more you nicked, And I ended up bashing this fella and got dragged down. As I was getting dragged down So where they was going to sling you, over the wall and on the, around the pitch. I didn't know this till afterwards. He wasn't going to nick me. He was just going to throw me out. But as he was pulling me down, a fella spat at me. I pulled away from the copper and belted him. So it was in plain sight of the coppers. All of them could see me do it. So then I did get nicked and I got taken to Blackstock Road Police Station. I don't think it's there anymore. Blackstock Road Police Station. And in my absence, there'd been a streaker on the pitch. Actually, she was topless. She was topless. And anyway, it turned out she was standing next to me at in front of the desk sergeant. And,
in the old build shop.
So, which was a bit strange. And then, anyway, they put me in a cell. And there were two blokes already in the cell. So I thought, they're going to be, Dot and the car, they're going to be Arsenal, aren't it? Yeah, they've got to be Arsenal. Only they weren't. Yeah. Only they weren't. And I went, all right, fellas. And when I spoke to them, they were both Scousers. And I said, what the fuck are you doing down here? They dip in pockets. They come down, they live local, they come down, they would stand in a flat somewhere in Highbury. And every time Arsenal was at home, went over Arsenal, dipping people's pockets. So, I'm not being funny, I would have almost got nicked again because I was fuming with them because I thought, fuck me, that is a proper liberty, if I've ever heard one. Anyway, what didn't help, I was up in court on the Monday. It's Sod's Law as well, Tottenham won 3-1. And that didn't happen very often at Arsenal.
You didn't see it.
That's what happened that day. So I got to Highbury Magistrates Court on the Monday, and it's my birthday. So I've got no one representing me. I had a previous before then as well with the football, and anyway, basically the judge said to me, "You're looking at a custodial sentence." So they take me downstairs, and there's a brief sitting there talking to someone else, and he said to me, "Have you got any representation?" I said, "No, mate, no, I ain't got nothing." He said, when we go up, it's just my birthday. I done proper land on him. It's my birthday. My daughter's baking me a cake and all this lark. And when I go up, he says, I'll have a word with the judge for you. So I said, thanks, thanks, Go. I appreciate it. And I'll go up. So the old judge says to me, he says, I'll sentence you to 1 month's imprisonment, suspended for a year.
Oh,
what a touch.
Yeah.
And then he says, and I'll fine you the sum of £100, which was a fair bit of money in them days, £100.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So he says, I'll fine you the sum of £100. He went to me, how do you intend paying? I said, well, to tell the truth, I'm a little bit short at the moment. He went 28 days. I felt like saying, well, what the fuck hell would you ask for then if you already knew what you was going to say? Anyway.
Yeah.
And so at least I walked out of the court. I walked out of the court, so... But that did spill in because it was Sod's Law. I was going to get nicked, wasn't it? It was Sod's Law that within the space of that, of that suspension, I'd get nicked. And of course, that's exactly what happened. I went up to Liverpool. I think it was the first year we'd won in something like 70 odd years or something. We won 1-0. Coming out of the ground, and there was a little bit of a dual carriageway, and some of the Scousers were standing at the bus stop, and one of my mates got into his head, he's run over and he's belted a fella, and then he's come badly unstuck, which meant a few more of us had to run over the road, and it just got bigger and bigger. This fight just got bigger and bigger. People were coming from all over the place. So a copper's got hold of me by my jacket. He's on a horse. Of course, he couldn't nick me, could he? He's not going to get off the horse, is he? So I kept just walking out the road with him as he's got me. He's not until he finds another copper. I'm not going to be nicked. So he nearly let me go. Told me to fuck off. But then when we got down to this petrol station, there was a big mob of Scousers. And in those days, I used to wear a flat cap. It's all kicked up again. And when it's all over, when the old bill spit up, these geezers on the other side of the road waving my hat, taking the piss. I got your hat. Of course, I've lost the plot, and I straight across the road.
Yeah,
fucking belted him, and that Scousers. The old Bill just battered me, absolutely battered me. got me in the back of the van. Yeah, it's all pissing it, dog ends on the fucking floor and God knows what. And so they got your head on the floor and a fucking foot on the back of your head, keep pushing you down into, God knows what was on the floor. And anyway, so basically I'm nicked home. I spent the night up in Liverpool, had to missed the last train, and got the coach back to Victoria. Got back into Victoria about 7 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, so listen, I'm in trouble now, aren't I? Because if I go back up there and I'm found guilty, we're on the suspended.
On the suspension over your head, yeah.
Yeah, so I got it with a pal. And anyway, so 2 coppers get in the dock. Now, this is a bit of advice here, fellas. If you ever get nicked in Liverpool, bear this in mind. One of them gets up, he gets his notes out. Your Honours, the accused was seen to run across the road, strike a Liverpool fan and say, "I'll kill you, you fucking twat." And I pulled a face. I looked at the judges and I see the woman judge, there was 3 of them, and I see the woman judge go, she pulled a face, and I thought, she's clocked this. The next one gets up, gets his book out, word for word. They've obviously done their notes at the same time. And he says the same, "I'll kill you, you fucking twat." So half time comes, we go out the back. I think I'm in trouble here. Take the raincoat off, take me watch off, give me mate, my wallet and all this. Brief comes out. I said, "You ain't going to look good, have you, mate? Really?" He said, "Fuck all." He went, No. When you go back in," he said, "It'll be your turn, have your say." So I thought I got up a chance now. So I go in, I stand up. I said, "Excuse me, Your Honours." I said, "I've lived in London all my life." I said, "I know a fair bit about London culture." I said, "And I've never met anyone in London," I said, "who uses the word twat." I said, "You boat them up," there's a quote with that from their books. Case dismissed, £160 costs. We made sat on the train, had a good old drink. When we got off at Euston, we went and had a ruby. So, fellas, that's my word of advice. You ever get caught up north, just keep shouting out, "Twat, twat, 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 twat." They'll put it in their book and then you can deny it. Because of all the words they could have used, that a Cockney would have used, they said it the way they would say it. Yeah. And they done me a massive favour. Because if I'd been found guilty, I'd have definitely gone away. I'd have definitely gone away.
So, just a quick question, Frank. You said that you was up there wearing your flat cap. So even back in those days, was there a difference between the way the Northerners and the Southerners dressed?
The hat I used to wear, they used to call it a golf links cap. So it was basically like a flat cap, and it's in like 4 squares, and you've got like the little nipple bit on the top. Yeah, I mean, they're very popular now. They're very, very popular now. I've seen it, I mean, I suppose you blinders and all that. Yeah. Generations before me, working men, every man wore a hat, didn't he? Either wore a trilby, or he wore a flat cap, or every man wore a hat of some sorts. So I suppose you was only emulating what you'd seen your old man do, or your grandfather, or your uncles, So yeah, you probably did stand out a little bit, apart from the obvious things that we had the discussion before, like a donkey jacket. I mean, that pretty much made you stand out in them days. But I mean, I never realised till years later. My mate said we used to call you Frank the Hat. I don't ever remember that, to be honest. So it could have been worse. Could have been Jack the Hat, and I didn't want to land up like he did, No, of course not. No, you don't want to end up like he did. Okay, Frank. On to the next away day story. And this is only a short one, fellas. I was working in the morning. We had West Ham away, and I'm sure most of you know West Ham is not an easy place to go, even when you are firmed up, or mocked up. I had to work this particular morning, and I said to my pals, "I'll meet you over there," So I make my way to King's Cross and get on the Metropolitan line, and I suppose it's about 2 o'clock. So I've done well. I've managed to, get over there, get over the East End, and train's packed, and the majority of people clearly on the train are West Ham. Oh. So all of a sudden, there's 3 or 4 fellas to one side of me, and I thought to myself, I'm fucking sure I know one of these blokes, and I know they're West Ham, So if I've recognised him, chances are he might recognise me.
Yeah.
And I suddenly thought, do you know what? Me and him have had a rat at Liverpool.
It is a problem. What are we going to do? Kill the geezers? Yeah. Any volunteers? 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4.
Want to come for a swim, Frankie?
Any good? Get rid of all that Spanishified shit. I want red, black and chrome everywhere. Oh! I think that was out, Charles.
Damn it was in.
Damn it was in! I'm not playing no more, Charlie. And you? Who killed the radio star? Let me finish. Oh.
Street station in the past. Sergeant Stokely don't recognise me. And then something very fortuitous happened. There had been a bloke standing opposite me, and he'd been very on his own, you know, and he looked a bit iffy, this bloke. And I did wonder if he was a Tottenham supporter, right? Because he wasn't talking to any of the other West Ham people on this train. And all of a sudden, we pull in to a West Ham station. Doors open, and he literally bounced off of this train and went, "Coming in, here we are." And nobody moved. Nobody moved. He'd clearly never been to West Ham before, had he? He didn't know you get off at Upton Park. He'd just seen West Ham and thought that's where West Ham played. So the only godsend was, it took the attention off of me, didn't it? Because everybody was so busy laughing. He was the only one on the platform. He was the only one on the platform.
No one got off.
No one else got off. He was of course. He didn't get back on that train. I'll tell you that. He didn't get back on that train. But he said it done me a bit of a favour, because by the time everyone had stopped talking and laughing about him, you know, we had got to Upton Park and got off, yeah. So, I can't believe this geezer, because he probably done me a big favour in the long run. You know?
Fantastic. I'll tell you what, that story, Frank, he got off at West Ham, bounced off, ready for it.
Yeah.
Come on then, you hammers. He
basically went, you know, like, here we go. Something like, he went, here we are, or here we go, like, and everyone just went, what? You know, he might as well have had Tottenham written across his head, Mike.
Yeah. I just think.
And I'll tell you another story about West Ham. We played West Ham the night game at White Hart Lane, and you know, West Ham always turned up, you know, usually hours before everybody else. You know, that's how organised they were. And anyway, so we think, you know what, for a change, we're going to surprise them. We're going to leave before the end of the game. So we had a mate with a lorry, Clemmy had a lorry, and our mate Billy, he had like a Sherpa van. So we said to quite a few people, listen, we've got a lorry, a van, let's jump in these, let's get down to Liverpool Street, and let's be on the platform when they come in from White Hart Lane into Liverpool Street. Let's be waiting for everyone. Yeah, lovely. Man.
We're ready, yeah.
So we've done this, and we're waiting on the platform. So the first trainload of West Ham pull in. And, you know, there's quite a few people on can fill a train, can't it? You know. And it was shock value, wasn't it? The first few geezers who got off like in half a dozen here, half a dozen there. I went, fuck that, Tottenham's here, like. So we had the element of surprise. So we put them on the back foot. Unfortunately, the next fucking train pulled in on the other platform. Yeah. And then the proper firm got off.
Oh, no.
So all of a sudden we were seriously
outnumbered. Yeah.
Outnumbered. And you had no choice. You know, you had to go in the reverse. And in the old days, you used to have Broad Street Station, was next to Liverpool Street Station, and there was an alleyway. So the way I ran was towards the alleyway, and I thought, oh, fuck, if I get caught in that alleyway, I'm banging trouble.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So as I went to double back, there was like a dozen West Ham fellas, and I thought, oh, shit. Didn't recognise any of them, and none of them recognised me. So I've done that, and I've gone, oh, fucking all right. The geezer went, what's the matter, mate? You all right? I said, you fucking Tottenham bastards. "Oh, come on, mate, you know, come with us. We'll look up you. We'll look up." Fuck. But I won't name him. But I'm talking a proper top of the range face over Tottenham, right? Older than me, right? As I'm walking along with him, there's all these cages, you know, the mail cages, you know, like the trolley things, they pull them along, they're like cages.
Oh, yeah,
wheels.
yeah.
And there's all parcels. And all of a sudden, I hear, Frank, he's only hiding in one of them. And this is one of our top.
And he's calling you out.
He's actually hiding in amongst the parcels, right? And if they'd have got hold of him, I mean, he'd have been a proper trophy. You know, he'd have been a proper prize. And I don't reveal who it is. When I see him, I have a laugh and a joke with him, you know. And but no, he was very lucky. But yeah, our great surprise for West Ham, I'm afraid, just didn't happen. You know, we could have come very, very badly unstuck.
So the first train got off. You thought, sweet.
Yeah.
The train got off.
We thought we could do the business here.
Yeah. We're going to have a story to tell.
But then the proper boys got off. It wasn't quite.
And then the next train got off.
Yeah. I don't know how many West Ham boys remember that, like, you know. But I can laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny.
Not like I can imagine it wasn't very funny at the time, especially for your pal that was hiding between parcels and letters and stuff, just to keep his nut down. So on to the next story, Frank.
Yeah, I mentioned a Liverpool bit, didn't I? Let's see.
We can edit anything out, Frank, so it don't matter.
The only one I've really got. We went to Munich. Went to Bayern Munich, and same again. We had our own coach. You know, we decided to do our own coach, and that was a long old trip. I suppose we went through Holland, you know, Belgium to get to Germany. So you're stopping up having a drink, you know, different places, and then we got all the booze on the coach. So we managed to get to Munich, and I don't know if any Tottenham fellas remember it was a game. I think we got beat 4-1, and the fog had come across. You probably get it on YouTube. It came over the Olympic Stadium. We actually got into the stadium and didn't know we were in the stadium because we queued up. It wasn't like a turnstile system. It was a gate. So you suddenly realised that these backs in front of you weren't the queue. It was actually the last line of the crowd, because it was a bowl. The Olympic Stadium was like a bowl. Instead of you coming in and going up, you came in at the top and went down. So all we could see was a goalkeeper, and if someone was taking a corner, that was probably it. Didn't see any of the goals. So just as well as I'm sure we lost 4-1. But the crazy bit was when we came out, and I saw there was at the old stadium, there's a forest. And I saw these Tottenham fellas running into the forest to fight Bayern. So I'm thinking, happy days. I run into the forest, don't I? So there's all punches going all over the place. Geezers with Tottenham's hats on, Tottenham scarves. Now I've got to find a coach, you know. I don't know where I am. I'm in the middle of a forest. So I say to this fella here, mate, where's the coaches? They're all fucking German. All the geezers wearing the Tottenham scarves and the hats were Germans. They was all 1860 Munich fans. They turned up to have a punch up with their rivals. Now I haven't got a clue where I am. You know, it's pitch black. And the only godsend was there used to be, it was like a red beacon. There was like a tower, Olympic tower. And there was a red light at the top, and I vaguely remember seeing it before I went into the stadium, you know. And when I got back to the coach, I thought, fuck me, I don't even know what hotel I'm staying in. I don't know what part of Munich we're staying in. Yeah. I'm in trouble here. I'm in trouble. And when I got back to the coach, there was only up a dozen people on it. Because everybody else was running around fighting and, you know.
Not know what's going on.
Or couldn't find a coach. Or they couldn't find a coach, you know. So, yeah, another mare trip, you know. And there's been so many of them, and I feel sorry for young fellas these days because they're never gonna experience what we experienced. You know.
Do you really think that, Frank? Do you think that sort of era and those days are gone for good?
Yeah, because I think teams like Tottenham, Man United, Liverpool, Leeds, you'd have to include Forest.
Yeah.
Obviously, winning the European Cup, and Aston Villa. I think teams like that, clearly eventually Arsenal, Chelsea and so on. But in those early days, we were like the pioneers. We were, people hadn't gone to Europe. People couldn't afford to go to Europe. We went on Spanish, we went on Spanish holidays. So we were the pioneers in that sense. We were the first ones to go to. You take my own particular club, Tottenham. You're talking finals. In the 70s. It hadn't really been done before. So over the years, and then take into account, my first European game would have been, when did Argentina win the World Cup? Was it 78?
Yeah.
And Tottenham signed Ricky Villa, didn't they? Tottenham
That's
signed
right,
Ricky
yeah.
And our dealers.
And Aussie our dealers.
And I don't know if I mentioned this, I probably might have mentioned it in the last podcast. I was literally standing in a pub in the Lord Summers Town, just round the back of Euston. And my mate Bill was a few years older than me. We worked on the buildings together. And he said, Frank, what are you doing tomorrow night? I said, probably the same thing I'm doing tonight, Bill. Stand down to drink with you, mate. He went, oh no, let's go to Belgium and give the boys a welcome. And I went, who? Welcome who? And he said, Aussie Ardiles and Ricky Villa, they're playing Royal Antwerp in a pre-season friendly. I didn't have a passport. Never been on a boat in my life. But you get a yearly one. You could get a piece of cardboard, put your photo on it, get stamped, last you a year. So we get on the boat, disco boat. Now, when a steward comes around and asks if you want a drink, we're thinking, in them days it was Truman's, wasn't it? Charrington's, tins of Party 7, Watney's Party 7 party and Party 4s. Guys didn't have a clue what we're talking about. So we're saying, well, what fucking beer you got, mate? Come on, And he offered us Beck's. We've never heard of it. Now you take it for granted, like the Beck's. We never heard of it. Of course, what's this shit and all this? We clearly wasn't cultural, that's for sure.
No. But
of course, eventually we got used to this fucking box. We got bottles of Beck's, and eventually we did get to answer it. Nowhere to stay. We didn't have a clue what we was going to do when we got there, and we landed up staying in some sort of youth hostel, which was in like a big old Gothic, building, and it was all bunk beds.
No frills.
All students,
Yeah.
And there was a washroom. This is how uncultured we were in them days, right? There was a washroom. Someone's gone in there, and he said, I'm just going to go and have a pony. Fair enough. 5 minutes later, he went, yeah, how'd you flush this Carsey? Wasn't the Carsey. It was a bidet.
The bidet, yeah.
None of us had ever seen one. None of us had ever seen one.
What can you do if you ain't seen one, Frank?
Let's put it this way, I was still living in an house, right, with a tin bath on a now, in the backyard on a now, and an outside toilet. So I'd certainly never seen one. And you always get someone who's been on a foreign holiday, so he thinks he knows what it is, and says, don't be fucking stupid, it's for washing your feet in. So he was just as thick and as ignorant as the rest of us,
He thought he was black.
A couple of times.
Yeah.
He thought it was cultural, So yeah, so that was the sort of mad things that that used to.
Yeah, he was thought he was.
And you wouldn't get that now. Young fellas, aren't going to experience that. And
no, because of the internet and just the way the world is, and 18 to 30 holidays and stuff, people are more clued up now. And you don't wash your feet in a bidet.
And the mad bit is, I thought we was coming home the next day, and my mate said, no, they're playing in Venlo in a couple of days' time. I never even heard of it. And it was on the Dutch-German border, and it was quite a big garrison for the British Army. So we travelled to Venlo, VVV Venlo they were called. Well, of course, some bright spark, someone at the top in the army decides to give his troops 24 hours leave. So when we get off the train and we roll into Venlo, there's all geezers sitting around in Man United shirts, Liverpool shirts, Newcastle shirts.
What's going on here?
So within fucking 5 minutes, we're having a punch-up with the British Army. Which we wouldn't have normally done, we'd have been singing their praises. But because they was wearing all these different fucking football shirts, it's all kicked off. So I don't think we had a row with any Dutchman.
No, it was the British Army.
Yeah. Throughout the course of the day. But what it was not we had, there was the South Moluccans. We had a lot of trouble with the South Moluccans and the, what's the other little mob out there, Surinamese, because they're all the colonies, the Dutch colonies. And they had their own areas in Amsterdam, Nijmegen, places like that we travelled through. And mate, we had so much trouble in Amsterdam. It was a joke, we was able to pick up roadworks. They had knives, what they were doing is they was going around the train station, and all the young fellas who couldn't find anywhere to stay, they were sleeping rough at the station. So these South Moluccans were going around there trying to rob them. They had no mobiles in them days, so they couldn't even find a mate. So listen, we're in trouble, And we cross a few people and say, "What's the matter?" Right? And they go, "Oh, the boys are getting tortured and that, So we land up with all these big poles that they were stuck in the road, these big metal poles. And it kicks off big time. There's a few paper cuttings about it. There is a few paper cuttings about it. I know someone got in trouble. A load of Surinamese come out of a club, bashed a couple of top young kids up. And we heard about him. We went round him, and a couple of the boys picked up a motorbike and they threw it through the window. So they'd all have to come running out. But of course, you don't think of it at the time. They'd have blown up. That bike would have caught fire. We'd have got done with murder or manslaughter. But mad days, wasn't it? Mad, crazy days.
Mad days.
Drink fuel to a certain degree, but devilment more than anything else, And then I suppose that mad thing when you went away, like, you sort of, we're English, we're fucking British, we don't give a fuck,
Of course, yeah.
And of course, that did change. We had this discussion before. It did change. People did get organised, If we went to Amsterdam, say a tournament, pre-season tournament, we just go there in. We would just go in.
Take the piss.
That's a proper liberty. Well, when we tried to do that in finals, 180, 100 out of winning there, that was a different fucking story altogether.
They were ready for you.
But as I say, it was all part of growing up.
Yeah, No one can hold that against you.
But saying that, I wasn't part of saying that. I was too old really for the casual scene.
Right.
And as you know, I spent a little bit of time in prison, something else. It wasn't football related. So musically and clothes wise, I wasn't really part of that scene.
No.
So there's a part
of me. What, Frank? Do you know what, Frank? It's nice to talk to somebody that, okay, UK Casuals is UK Casuals, and I like to speak to people from that scene. But it's also nice to widen my education to speak to people that was a little bit before that scene. I'm interested in the whole lot, Frank,
Yeah, as I say, don't get me wrong. I like a lot of the music. I liked a lot of the music from that particular era, and the clothes, and I could see the attraction for it. And listen, it was no less violent. In fact, in some respects, it was probably more violent because
more organised. Yeah,
it's better organised. It was mob against mob in our day. But yeah, it did become more organised. But I'm afraid in recent years, I look at some of these videos and I think, fuck me, is it a chair throwing competition or a table? You know, people go to get outside a pub and the first thing they do is pick up a fucking chair, you know, or a table. Well, I know. How about going in the pub? How about actually going in the pub and fucking throwing a right hand and take your chances?
I think the best video for me, Frank, is the one where it's young lads and they're bouncing about and there's different videos. They put different music to it.
Oh, Scotland, up in Scotland.
So they look like they're dancing, and
one of the fellas has got glasses on, isn't he? He looks like someone. He's one up with the Proclaimers, isn't he? That's him. Yeah.
There's not a punch thrown. It's just.
I know it was the funeral of Martin King the other day.
Yeah.
And clearly being Tottenham, you know, and our rivalry with Chelsea, you know, goes back a lot of years. But credit where it's due, Martin was the real deal. He was a proper face, and I was genuinely sad when I heard he passed away. I knew he was ill, and obviously I'd seen him on your particular podcast, and I was genuinely upset when I was doing my book. I wasn't quite sure how to publish it.
Yeah.
And Martin was suggested to me, and I contacted Martin, and he said, "Frank, why don't you self-publish?" Which I did, which was a good move for me. I did self-publish and self-distributed it as well. So in that way, I could sign the book. Because I was a great believer. If you're good enough to buy my book, I should sign it. You should
sign it, yeah.
And he put me in touch with a company up in Leicestershire. Funny enough, I've just ordered some more books up with them in the last couple of weeks. But I acknowledged that in the book. I did, you know, when you thank certain people in the book, I did make a point of thanking Martin. And ideally, I'd have liked to have gone up there, you know, and paid my respects. And I know some other people did. In fact, chatting to an Arsenal fella today, and
a couple of lads went up.
Fair play to them with a reef and that, you know, fair play to them. They went up there, and that's good. I mean, if people can show their respects for each other, you know.
I think there was that. How shall I put it? There was a lot of portly gentlemen with not a lot of hair, Frank. At the funeral. I think that's how
I call it the uniform of today.
Yeah. I think that's how I will describe it.
It's we're finishing up this year. I've been doing a talk on a Gangster Tours bus.
I've seen that, yeah.
A friend of mine, Mickey Goldtooth, runs that, and he's got a very good historian on there, Ian Mackenzie. And because they knew that I'd been away with Charlie Bronson back in the early 90s, I met him on Cat A in Winston Green up in Birmingham.
Right.
And we still keep in touch. And basically they asked me if tell a few stories about my experiences with Charlie, because, you know, most people who say they've met Charlie, they've not met Charlie at all. They've been in the same prison as Charlie.
No,
you know, because Charlie's been banged up on his own for so long. How could you possibly have met him? When he was on lesser category prisons, yes, some people clearly did. You know, that's going back a long time. But you'll get fellas of a certain age and they go, "Oh, I know Charlie, I used to walk around the yard with him." Well, you must have been a fucking clever man to do that, because he was banged up. He was on solitary. You know, I genuinely met him on the cat. In fact, he was the first man I ever met in prison. He was marching around the category A yard in Winston Green, and we've kept in touch ever since. So I've been doing a talk on the bus, maybe once, twice a month. That's been good. I did the last one Saturday for this year. I'll be doing it again next year. I'm also doing a talk up in Burnley. A friend got in touch, a Burnley mate, and he said, "Frank, you know, some of the boys up in Burnley, so they'd like you to come along, do a talk about the football, the prison years, different experiences." So I'm up in Burnley on the 12th of February.
Okay.
I think Burnley are playing Liverpool that day, and someone's kindly got me a box as well, so I can go and watch the game, then do the talk in the evening. But I've also had some other inquiries. I've had some inquiries from some mates up in Bradford, someone in Leicester, someone in Portsmouth. So while I'm at it, a bit of advertising. If any other little firms, any of the fellas would like me to come up to their town, their city, or whatever, and do a talk, please get in touch, whether that's direct to me or even via Matty. I'd
not
appreciate
a problem.
that.
Yeah,
appreciate that, and I look forward to meeting people. After I've done the talk, I'll do a Q&A session. You can ask me anything you like. I'll gladly sit down and have a chat with people afterwards. So yeah, that's a new thing for me to be doing, starting in February. I've been approached by a documentary maker, somebody ironically I interviewed on my own podcast. For those that don't know, I do a podcast called Frankly Speaking with Frank Portinari.
I'll put the link in the description.
And the criteria for that is basically real and inspiring people, and people who don't always get access to social media. They don't get a chance to tell their stories, and
giving them a voice.
I've had some fascinating interviews with some very real and very inspiring people. And well, listen. So if you go into YouTube and you see Frankly Speaking with Frank Portinari, have a look, and if possible, subscribe, and I appreciate that. So yeah, one of my guests has recently won an award for a short film in the Birmingham Film Festival, and it was suggested to him that he start doing documentaries. He asked me to collaborate with him. I just thought we'd be working on a project, but he actually wants to do the documentary about me. So we'll be doing that through the course of next year. There's a lot of travel involved, a lot of logistics. Obviously, we've got to raise funds, etc. But a very exciting project. I'm looking forward to it. And then later in the year, because I'm a member of the Professional Speaking Association, I'm been invited to do a talk at the Global Speakers Summit in Dublin at the end of the year, where there'll be hundreds of speakers from all over the world. It's like the World Cup every 4 years. One of the continents entertains it. And I'm very fortunate. A good friend of mine won the franchise for that. He introduced me to the PSA in the first place, and he's invited me to go along and speak. So yeah, I've got a big year coming up next year, Matt. A very, very big year coming up next year, and I'm very much
glad to hear it, Frank. Glad to hear it. Okay, so you've heard the stories of Frank Portinari of Spurs. I am sure we will get him back for a part 3 later on in the new year. Frank Portinari's book is out, Left to Right Loyalist, From One Extreme to Another. Is it on Amazon, Frank?
It is on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon, and I'm going to be totally honest with you. If you buy it off of Amazon, you get it cheaper than if you get it off of me. The only difference is if you get it off of me, I can sign it. I can put. When I go to Burnley in February, I'll take wherever I'll go, I'll obviously take a pile of them with me. Yeah. I've not quite finished the second one yet, but it's getting there. It is getting there. So.
Okay. And as Frank said, go and check out his podcast, Frankly Speaking, and please subscribe. Thank you to today's sponsors, which are 80s Casuals, Section 60 Clothing, Terrace Cult, and Awayday Apparel. And there'll be more videos coming from UK Casual soon. More videos coming from UK Casual soon.